Hi, and welcome to the Route to CISO Podcast. It's me, Chris Rides. I'm going to be your host, and I'm going to be chatting to seasoned Chief Information Security Officers about their career journeys. We're going to be unencrypting their real-life stories and searching for the hidden keys to help you fast-track your cybersecurity career. Hello, and welcome to Season 2 of the Route to CISO Podcast. I've got Amanda Fennell with me. Amanda, thank you for joining me and spending some time talking about your career. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here. Always fun.
Great. It feels like it's like a deja vu. Do you feel like we've done this before?
I don't know. It does. It's like the Matrix, the black cat walking by. Like, yeah, this feels familiar.
Yes. For listeners, I may know already some of the answers to this because we recorded the whole of part one.
I'm going to make up every answer now, by the way, and somebody else's like background and resume. It's going to take you a while to be like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that's so strange. That's not what you said last time. So yeah, and then when you're talking about, because I've heard it all before, if I start drifting off like this, you just have to
charge you up. That's fine.
Yeah, Chris, go and get some coffee. That's what we'll need. But yes, thank you. It will seem like part one and take one for everybody else here, but it is part one and take two for us, with a few days in between, internet engineers coming out to help me out. And anyway, we're here now, which is very exciting. So I'm glad we're getting to have this conversation. I guess a good place to start is maybe with what you're up to at the moment. Please.
That is the place to start, typically. You're right. Okay. And I love this because I think I could take 10 minutes on it. I'm kidding. So as at Prove Inc., I'm at Prove Identity, and we are in charge of doing some pretty cool stuff with authentication, with cell phone numbers and some other data that's around and involved with that. But the fun role there for me is Chief Security Officer and Chief Information Officer, because we love to put those two together now. That's how we do that. So I make sure that things are secure, and I also make sure they're reliable, which is a match made in heaven.
Perfect. You're absolutely spot on. I'm seeing more and more of those CIO, CISO roles in sort of tends to be sort of certain size companies. In a sense, everybody that's doing it seems to be really happy to have both hats on. So good job.
Oh, well, that is a good question for you, because you probably see things on a much wider telemetry than I do, because I see it when I feel like people are trying to get a 2-for-1 special, when they're like, I bet this person knows about reliability too. So that's how it feels over the past, 5 to 7 years. But what is the trend you're seeing at different maturities? Companies decide, we could just combine these?
It's kind of companies that sometimes they've had a CIO, but they've never had a CISO. So I guess maybe they're sort of building that in. They want somebody that's a bit more security focused to do that. And they're not, I feel that either they can afford to have both true C-level people doing that. So maybe they're getting a 2-for-1. But also I feel like it makes sense for both roles to sit under that person, and it's easy. But so far, the people that are doing it all seem to be really happy.
I'm difficult to manage. Sure. That's why they put me under as a CISO to a CIO. They're like, just have her manage herself. Let's do that.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the perfect answer. So we'll see how that. But it's definitely a recent trend. It's only something I've seen over the last couple of years. So we'll see how it plays out. But at the moment, all the people that seem to be doing it seem to be happy, and they seem to be kind of the mid-sized companies, like medium-sized companies, I'd say. But anyway, there we go. Off subject a little bit.
Because we're getting stuff done. Yeah. Go ahead. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. So let's start. We're talking about your career, and to start will be what you did originally. Where did you start before you got into cybersecurity? Were you in college? What did you study? All of that lovely stuff.
What's funny? In the time that we chatted, beginning of the week, and then this time, I went to a conference for B-Sides in NOLA, and I had this experience of like watching people who were presenting, and I've presented a lot, we presented a lot. And there's a certain sweet spot of how much you should talk about yourself and when you shouldn't. And I thought about the difficulty of answering this because I knew you were going to ask me, and I was like, after watching some people that I was like, you over-indexed on yourself. Like, people don't actually care. So let's see if anyone cares about this beginning story. So I think you and I were students together in the archaeology program that I was in. I specialized in human
That's right, we
remains.
were.
Yep,
Yep, and
we
yeah,
go
I
way
was just
back.
wanting to be Indiana Jones, basically. Yeah, well, I was one of the
Laura
buried
Croft.
bodies. Yeah.
Yes, I dug
I
you
was one of
up,
the
right?
fake buried bodies. You dug me up. Yeah, I look like that
I
some mornings. I look like I've been dug up out of a grave. So,
no. But yes, there was a. I enjoyed figuring out. Look, I did grow up on Indiana Jones, so I went in archaeology, and because I had been told you you can't do anything if you love history and you love, that kind of stuff. You can basically be a lawyer or a teacher, and I was like, I don't want to be either of those things. And then I found out about archaeology, so I went into that, and then I started to do a master's in it in paleo hominid biology, and I was in DC at the Smithsonian, and then I found out there were no jobs that were going to pay back my student loans. Now, I want to just mention this because there's also a burgeoning, if that's the correct word in pronunciation, a burgeoning group of people who are frustrated that people who went into cyber or security for money. So I just want to mention, I went in it to afford my student debt originally, but I did ask the question, where can I do forensics and pay back my debt? And they said, well, there's a new industry called digital
mhm.
forensics. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to lift and shift into that. I just saw the Matrix. That sounds awesome. Like, I'm about it. I'd love to know about computers. I was a car mechanic, and I was like, okay, I can learn how to take things apart and put them back together. So I moved from archaeology into digital forensics, and that was the opening to this story.
Yes, and I love the move, and I think a lot of people do need to think about that because they choose the career that when they choose their degrees about things they're passionate about, and then it is right. A lot of places you then find you're all of a sudden working or doing huge amounts of debt that you're never going to pay back because you can never, even the top of your area, you're not going to earn enough money to do it. So no, I don't think that's a like. I think that's very different from the people that say, right, I'm going to move into cybersecurity and do a workshop and get paid six figures all of a sudden. That's a bit of a different situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, who knows? Maybe all of the debt will be forgiven and people won't have to worry about that. But I feel like it's you have to go for when you're picking what you want to do.
And also, like, maybe we should just spend more positive energy out there. Like, we all have, look, let's be honest, in the security space, we all have the ability to be snarky or irritated or grumpy about things. We've seen a lot of bad stuff. We've seen people try to do a lot of bad stuff, and we've heard every story. I mean, I got to tell you, there was this one thing that, like, I was doing an investigation one time, and somebody was trying to be adamant in the government that they were like, doing things on their computer that was completely legitimate. And I was like, that is absolutely not what we use the word legitimate for. That is what we call inappropriate usage, actually. But like the stories you hear. So we have the ability to be negative, but I choose to be positive and choose to kind of approach it that way. So yeah, people go into the industry for different reasons. And some people are coming into it because of money. I came into it because of money, but also because I fundamentally loved investigations and I get to snoop on people now just more legally.
Perfect. Yeah, it's completely okay. That's the way it works. So,
Yeah.
and digital forensics is such a niche. Well, like, we have a lot of people that are very interested in getting into it. There's a lot of consulting companies that do that, but not too many end clients, unless they're at a certain size, that tend to have digital forensics people in internally. At least that's what we
Okay. So there's
see.
a reason.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, how did you? This is good because a lot of people out there want to
Yeah,
do it,
there's
so we need to know about these things.
yeah, I will tell you because I also work at Tulane University as a professor and I focus on cybersecurity and digital forensics is my sweet spot in incident response. And I like to keep myself on my toes and stuff. So I will tell you that on the incidents I've seen in recent years, everybody's gone into a realm of tools and automation. And so if you have something like Sentinel-1 or whatever, you've got Splunk, different things, your answer to an investigation, a lot of times whenever people are newer in their industry, they're like, well, we have the logs, we have Sentinel-1. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have a PCAP? And they're like, a what? oh my God, like we don't have anything. They're like, well, we didn't have Sentinel-1 deployed. Well, just because you don't have Sentinel-1 doesn't mean you shouldn't know how to do you have an image? Like, so the question, and I said this politely, by the way, speaking of being positive, I was like, do you have an image, an EO1 file? So what I will say is that for people interested, the reason why we're not seeing a lot of people who specialize in it is because people have really leaned into this automation realm, but have forgotten we still need to know how to do the fundamental skills of digital forensics, which is how I started. I got recruited the first semester or two I was at George Washington University by Guidance Software, which was the #1 digital forensics investigation tool that was out there at the time. This was like 2007. And I
Yeah,
got,
FTK.
oh gosh, it's so Guidance, so NCASE versus FTK. This is the ultimate cage match, right?
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
yeah,
it
I
is.
got
Yeah.
recruited. And it was, I told them at the time, I was like, just so you know, I don't know all of these things yet, but I'm learning them in school. And they were like, that's great. Nobody has a degree in this right now. So we just want you because you look great on an RFP that you have this as your working to be determined. So I started with a baptism of fire, going straight into professional services, guidance software, learning how to deploy forensic tools and do investigations.
Wow. You Sherlock Holmes into companies, like getting in there and discovering what's gone on. Have you got any
I
really
was,
interesting stories that you're allowed to share? Go
um,
on. There's some great
yes,
ones.
yes. So I do, before you ask me the next place I worked, actually, yes, that's great. Let's talk about that. Yeah. So it's interesting because you would basically, this was back in the day for BlackBerry, so you'd get the BlackBerry, like, and then you'd rollerball email to see where you're getting deployed to for however long. And you never know where or why or for how long. You just know that you have to have a go bag, like we're in Criminal Minds or something, right? So I lived in
Right.
DC. I had a go bag. I felt like I was super exciting for a 27-year-old. I felt like this was everything I'd wanted in life was to be this cool. But what isn't cool is being deployed to like Kansas City for like 3 months or St. Louis for like 3 months unexpectedly, and there's nothing to do, and it's a black bag op, so it has to be done at night. And
Right.
the other thing is it was an active incident. It was an insider threat. Um, Black bag ops meeting. So like I'm only working at night. Nobody had told me that server rooms were so cold. So I'm hanging out, having to social engineer my way into the building every day, which wasn't that difficult because of smoke breaks back then, right? You could just get in. Um, get
Right.
into this
Yeah.
building, do black bag ops in a freezing cold room all night, getting images. And it was also a combative insider threat. So they were like very maliciously working at the middle of the night. So I would often find activity. And at this point, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's all scary at that point. I just know that it was just a really scary time. But one thing I can tell you is St. Louis is where they filmed Escape from New York. So that's like the claim to fame. So I spent all my time working during the night and during the day going and checking out sites of where they filmed this movie. But that was pretty much the way life went. And that was the investigation room.
That's so cool. So they would have had an insider threat, and so you couldn't go during the day because they'd be like somebody would say, "Who's this person?" And it could potentially be the insider threat that would find that out. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it was a really large entity and it was in the financial sector, in the banking realm. I think those are like the general terms that we could use. And so
Yeah.
you'd be surprised though, at that point, back in that time, just it's still at night, just the risk level is so low and nobody's in the room, nobody's in the building, nobody cares. And they definitely don't care about some really unsuspecting looking, young girl who's going through. I don't, it's not like I had like, what is the character from, is it Lisbeth from the Dragon Girl
Oh,
Tattoo things or whatever?
y- y- yes. I know.
I don't look anything like that. Yeah, right. But you can hear in the books, you can see that they really clearly show like she sounds like really alternative. I was not, I was very unsuspecting. I still am, and that's what I like to hide in plain sight. So that role was very much about learning for that baptism by fire, how to come at things really positively or gently or be like a hidden threat where people couldn't tell what you were doing. And there's a lot more combative. I don't know if are we videoing this so people know I'm air quoting that?
Yes, yes.
There's a
There's
lot,
video
there's
too. It'll be out on YouTube.
yeah, yeah, no. So there's a lot more combative stuff than people think are going on in those investigations. So it kind of primed me, and I got to tell you, I left the job because I couldn't handle that and finishing my master's at the same time. So I moved on. It was too much. I was also
Hmm.
part of the XM Sirius investigation in that situation. I lived in DC, so I basically was on a train to New York back and forth, the insider threat, or not insider threat, but insider trading investigation. The
Right.
only other thing I'll say there before I talk about the next job is I would often have to like roll two chairs together in a room where there were 50 devices that I was imaging at the same time and sleep on the two rolly chairs and put my sweatshirt over me and like just sit there and occasionally just hit the button because PST files break all the time and you have to fix them. And eventually I learned how to bash script and I was like, can I just do something that hits this button so I don't have to do it? But yes, I slept on a lot of chairs and a lot of cold rooms.
Wow, that's it. And then had to automate stuff. That was the answer. Then you could get a proper night's sleep,
If I could.
kind of,
But
on two
yes,
chairs anyway.
yes, on two chairs. And then I was lured away because the person who was kind of my mentor in that role started working at Booz
Mm,
Allen Hamilton, and he was really
yeah.
great. And I actually didn't know he was there until I was in the middle of the interview. And when I went through the interview, I was at the end of the panels, and then they decided to do a scenario-based incident. So they came in, and there were three people, and he came in and sat down, and I was like, oh, this, I didn't know this guy was here. His name's Tommy Quinlan. He went to like Zscaler and stuff like that. But while
Uh-huh.
they were in the investigation, you have to remember, I only have a year of experience. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And they started asking some questions that I wasn't really sure what they were asking for. And so he started to kind of feed me. He was like, well, remember this, the XM situation? And I was like, oh, you got to look in the recycling bin. And I would just go right through. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, you have to,
Right.
whatever. This is where the registry key would be or whatever. I'm so grateful he was there. But then that went to be the next 5 years of my life was deployed
Oh
as a
wow.
government contractor for all these three-letter agencies and learning how all the things were happening there, getting my TS clearance and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Now I'm waiting for your question. Go ahead and ask it. Anything you could talk about? Is that?
Anything you can time. I feel like there's some famous people, very famous people
Yeah,
that
he's
maybe were
not
working
as,
around that time.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's why it's the question, anything you can talk about. Oh, so you've seen the Snowden documentary? Did you watch that?
Who? Oh, I wasn't talking about him. Awesome.
Oh, really? Yes. No. Yeah, that was a fun, interesting time. I don't remember, I don't think I could say what our code word was for it, but yes, that was an interesting time to work at Booz Allen Hamilton. And to be contracted to the NSA, which is where I got my TS clearance. I think that's all common knowledge. Like, I think you could look that up because our TS clearances go through Congress acts and stuff. So you could see where that is. So that part's all common knowledge. It's more common now that we've said that. But yeah, it was a time of learning how to spin up incident response from scratch for different government entities, different like programs. Deploying NCASE became a really big part of it. That was the part where a lot of different places were like, how do we get an enterprise level of digital forensics? This was the sweet spot when people loved forensics and they all really invested in it before the world of automation and before the world of all the tooling that went there. So this was awesome to get to, really focus on how to develop these things. I remember not knowing how to do like a SOP for something where they wanted to spin up like a forensic lab. And I went out and got the book, sat down, looked at 800 NIST guidelines and was like, okay, how do I write an SOP? And man, I wish we had Gemini and ChatGPT back then.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know what you're on about. I hardly all my own personal hard work and sweat.
Do you know how many
Yeah.
times I put an email in and say sound nicer?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely do. Not that I do it, but I definitely know what you're talking about. Yeah. I mean,
Someone
I've got to
does,
say, it
yeah.
is amazing. Yeah. I had, so Chrissy, who works with me, she's just come back after she had a little one and he's a year old. So she's just back at work working for me again. again. And um, I was writing a cover sheet for a candidate, and she saw it. I was copying her in, and she was like, "Wow, I really feel like your cover sheets have got so much better." And I was like, "Well, thank you, Gemini, in this case, for doing that." Yeah, so I was like, "Here's my prompts. This is what I do," and she was like, "This is amazing," and it. I mean, it does make things so much quicker, and you're like, "That's exactly what I had in my head.
I knew it.
I
Like,
just couldn't
yeah.
get it out, and now it's
Well,
there."
I think that's the point, and we use this from university guidelines too. Like the AI policy from most places have gotten to a point where we're like, hey, we know you're going to use it. We're not saying you can't use it. We're just saying you can't use it in totality. Like you can't start with nothing and make it write your paper for you because we can tell, like we can monitor that. But like if
Yes.
you start with it and then say, make me sound more professional, make me sound smarter, make me sound nicer, or whatever, or inject humor or warmth or whatever, it does an amazing job for it. And I almost feel like if we're at the point that you see an email or materials from somebody who hasn't gone through that polish, you're almost like, do you have a license to Gemini? Do you need help?
Yeah. Oh, it sounds to me like you should have used AI to help that, help you out a little bit. I think so. I
Yeah.
give a lot of advice around clients. I've got a final interview. He's got 4 stages. He's put in the job description. He's put in the titles of the people he's interviewing for, and he's got them to throw questions at him as if those people. And it's amazing that you can do that kind of prep for
I
interviews now.
didn't even think about it. I did say so. I'm part of like a secret CISO Slack channel, right? Well, it's not secret now. Well, nobody can find it. Trust me, it's going to be super hard to find. But so I will tell you that this group recently talked about that. Like, how are you handling that final panel discussions for these high level jobs that we're all in? And like, how do you approach it? And so everybody has an opinion. And some people were like, oh, I crawl LinkedIn about the people I'm going to be meeting with and make sure that I see if we have common things or whatever. And essentially like, SIG in to do an intel of their own
Hmm.
and things like that. So like
Yeah.
I watched all of it and I read like the whole dialogue back and forth, which would be fascinating for you, right? Because you're like, what's going on the candidate side? Like, why are where are they getting all this from? I'm like, because we
Yeah.
talk about it. And we share back and forth information of like, hey, stay away from that company, stay away from this guy, Chris.
Yeah.
But no, so we do talk.
Not that
Okay,
recruiter.
okay. But no, but we talk about it, and somebody had said a lot of this, and then I was fascinated reading it because I will say I've heard there's a profile about your interview types, and I think my interview type, which in this particular system was called the charmer. And so I've never done the things that these people were listing in the Slack channel and talking about it. And I was like, why would you? Look, you show up, you be yourself, you answer the questions to the best of your ability, but also recognize like it goes both ways. Do I want to work for you? Like, do I want this role? Do you have what I'm looking for? And I come at it from that like chutzpah, if you will, like, I'm like, is this a good mutual beneficial relationship? And so I never even thought about doing all that work at all. I just figured it's organic, like it's either a great fit or it's not. But it's interesting to me because not everybody's a charmer. No one's going to think
Yeah.
I'm a charmer after this interview. But yeah,
But anybody else that is a charmer, just be an AI charmer. They may be a charmer. Maybe they've just learned it, which is good too. I mean, people I spoke to one candidate gets really anxious before interviews, and just that kind of prep work helps them be a little bit less anxious. For me, again, I'm pretty outgoing and like to know people and get to know them. So I get excited about meeting new people and having those sort of questions. I'm sure of nervousness, but I don't think I react like a lot of people. And then you've got people now in very technical and work hard to get on with stakeholders and connect and make connections and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it helps with people
I
with all
will
sorts of
say
personalities.
that was there's one like pivotal experience I had with the Booz Allen Hamilton era, and it was being in a room. And I feel like everyone has this story in their career that's like a watershed moment because I spent the first like 5 years in my career being quiet. I didn't want to like open my mouth and show that I wasn't technical enough, which, oh my God, when you're a woman, oh man, we're all scared we're going to show that. And so with the first 5 years, I'm getting a master's in
Yeah.
it. I'm getting all the certifications, that you start from the beginning for Security Plus, and then you eventually work up to CISSP or whatever, which don't get me started about that. So I'm going through this, I'm being quiet, but there's a moment when I had this like clash with some people, and it's funny because you made the comment about the personality of some people really struggle with the stakeholder engagement and the charming side of it because they're so technical, deep knowledge. And I was surrounded by a lot of those people, and I like them. Like, I really enjoy them, which is why eventually I got into a
Hmm.
leadership role because I was like, I bet I can make those people super activated because I understand them and I'm charming. So, like, I can put these two, maybe. But I had this clash with a group of people in an investigation there, and I was doing forensics and investigations, and somebody apparently in the team was very much lacking in any awareness of like how to engage with the stakeholders. And I asked him at one point, and I don't normally speak up in these meetings. It's at the Pentagon. There's a 5-star, 4-star general in the corner, standing very confidently. I'm not saying he's in the corner hiding. He's just doesn't need to be anything other than what he is. So
Yeah.
I had this investigation, and then I found out that the indicators of compromise, the IOCs, this team had it for like a week before the incident, and they didn't share it. And it would have helped I ended up finding them at 3 o'clock in the morning, eating the Hershey bar, going through like, files by myself. But it would have saved me an intense amount of time as well as saved a lot of stuff. And I ended up like getting so affronted in this meeting that I said, why didn't you share those with the investigations team when you got them? And he said it was a need to know basis. And I like, it's like a peacock feathers, like all the peacock feathers like float. I mean, I was like, who decided need to know? And he was like, I did. And I looked at him and I was like, I have a higher clearance than you will ever have. And the guy who had brought me in was in the room next to me, and he just like looked at me for a second. He like argued to defend me. The general looked at the situation and the clash of these technical teams, and he just looked at him and said, don't ever hide things from her again. Make sure she gets things as soon as you get them, and walked out. And then my career just like took off. You just need a 4-star general to like back you up and you're good.
There you go. That's amazing. And so you were at Booz for how long? And then what made you move from
Five
there?
years.
Because it sounds like you were working in really interesting stuff. It's like mission led, We talked a bit
Oh,
about that in our take one that we never that we aren't using.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the mission led thing.
Well, it is interesting because we did talk about this, and it's important to bring this up that because you stumbled upon this, and this is like this Easter egg of mine that I actually love people who are in like veterans or involved with the government because they are mission led and driven, and there is a very clear vision and mission, and we're all rowing in the same boat in the same direction. Like it's absolutely how I feel. The most important ever military positioning that we ever came up with back in the day was like the phalanx, like 300 and Sparta and Thermopylae. I kid you not, my firstborn son's name is Leonidas after Sparta and like the king and stuff. So like this dynamic of we could have 300 people, but we could find a way to fend off 30,000 to a million is the essence of cybersecurity. It's the essence of security. Like we have a few people to fight many. And the only way that you're going to do that is if you believe in what you're doing and you are committed to it and you understand vision, mission, execution, and you care. And that is something you come across a lot. It's also something you come across when it's missing. You can tell and it's really palpable. So it was really important. Why did I move on from that area that I loved so much? See the aforementioned title. It's not aforementioned in here. We didn't actually use it technically. I was a consultant. That is difficult. That is a difficult life. So I moved on thinking I could find a better way than the consultant era, which is it's a difficult, stressful life.
Yeah, yeah. It's to be even you look at a consultant, you're involved in a lot of things, but it's hard to make a difference in a lot of areas. I speak to people that are in that consulting gig. And I think people mature really quickly in it. But if you really want to make a difference, you kind of need to work at an end client. You need to actually be an employee.
Well, okay. So I didn't make the best decision here then. Okay. So when you say it like that, it sounds like it's really clear what I should have done. But I went for a little bit, I went to Dell SecureWorks thinking I didn't think I was a consultant, but I was an incident manager and incident handler. And I learned quickly you need to get things in writing about how much travel you're supposed to do. Because I had a newborn to a 1-year-old in the time that I was there. And I was pretty committed to being like a great mom and stuff. And I don't think that has to be mutually exclusive from being really committed and great at your job. I think you should be both.
Yep.
And you can be both. But after getting deployed a lot, every day I was turning around and getting deployed to different missions, if you will, for incidents and stuff. I was like, this is not the life. I have to like find a way to get my kid to come with me. He's only 7 months old or whatever. And this is just stressful. And then I'm at work stressed out the whole day because I need to deal with. So it wasn't the job I thought it should be. So then I went on and quickly, within like 6 months, I left Dell SecureWorks. And they were kind of going through a lot. They had just been bought by Dell. And so their culture and their entire identity was going through a lot. So I moved on to Symantec. And I'm going to tell you, you just said it was really important if you don't feel like you could really do things that people were going to listen to and stuff like that. Yes, the question you have to ask yourself is why I moved on to do managed services at a company for all these Fortune whatever companies where people weren't necessarily going to listen to what I said. So yes, this is the next 5 years of my life.
Samantha, why did you choose to do that?
Okay. All right. So I watched the government really want to do great security, but not always have the best execution that they could have. So all of a sudden, you have tons of budget. And that's where we had the Fortune companies. They have tons of budget that they can do all of the things, but they can't execute. And the reason normally is because they're just so large and unwieldy. And so rolling something out, like at this point, this was endpoint protections or DLP and whatever it is, they were, or managed services, things like that for managed security. Any of these things were just really difficult to get deployed to a company that had 130,000, employees. So we'd have to come in, so look, why did I do it? This is a good question. I'll summarize it this way. I went to Symantec because I knew that they were a great name. I knew that they knew what they were doing. They were huge at this time. This is before even Blue Coat was involved or any of this. So it was a bastion of security in this world. I was going to have great exposure to sink my teeth into some really meaty problems. And I did. And I got to go in and judge people's security and tell them how to make it better. And the difference is when you do that in the government and you say, hey, these are your gaps and this is how what you need to do, that just disappears sometimes on a report somewhere. And you'll never see it again until the next audit comes up or something like that. Nobody really oh, well, we did that's it. The paper was pushed. But when you do it at Symantec and a managed services capacity and stuff, it meant something. When I sat in the room with executives at Starbucks or Walmart, et cetera, my voice was just as important as everyone else's at that table. That was a very heady experience to get to see that person who was quiet the first 5 years of her career. I got a voice and people cared what I had to say. That was great.
That's such a, well, when you're moving like that, and are you an introvert, or what do you feel like to go from somebody, or was that, I feel like you kind of made it sound like a bit more calculated, like not being being the sort of quiet person and the thinker in the room a bit more earlier in your career, or like what's your style, I guess?
That's a really complex question. I love it. So according to a Myers-Briggs, I'm about 85% introverted actually, but
Okay.
I'm an INTJ. And so those are the architect. And so the way to best understand this is well, in a great Lord of the Rings reference, it's Elrond So he's the guy who brings everybody together, understands what the weaknesses are, figures out what you need to do, and then kind of sits back and hopes that you just do them well, but watches and occasionally shows up at the last minute with a great elven army to help you at Helm's Deep. So that's a great reference. Another well-known INTJ from the Star Wars realm would be Emperor Palpatine. Also, great architect, had great ideas, and kind of just hoped they were all going to work out because he was pretty clever about them. But yes, so I am introverted, and I really like to sit back, not when I'm on a podcast, but I do like to sit back in a room and watch the human interactions that happen a lot. But I like to leverage at the right time. So I don't know. I guess it's actually a great question. I'm curious. You have a podcast, you talk to people all the time. Do you register as an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an ENTJ, so an
So you're the
extrovert,
same as me.
yeah,
Yeah.
with an E.
That sounds great. Yeah, but the same, just extroverted. So,
Oh,
and again,
yes.
because yeah, so we have to do the disclaimer here and make sure everyone knows being introverted doesn't mean that we don't enjoy the social side of things. It means we get really, I actually heard it best. Oh my God. Simon Sinek, the whole, talks all the time. He's great. One of his things was he said that the best thing to explain this was that when you wake up in the morning, an introvert is they have 5 coins. We have 5 coins that we can use throughout the day. And whenever we have our exchanges and stuff, we're less a coin. And at the end of the day, we need to go recharge somewhere to get coins back, kind of like Zelda or something. And he said extroverts wake up without coins, and they're waking up and they're looking for their 5 coins, and they get that energy and their coins from those exchanges. So it's not that we can't do them. It's not that we can't enjoy them. I love people. Fundamentally, archaeology is an anthropology degree. I love humans and studying them and what they think. And you said this too, like you love the talking and the exchanges. We love these
Yeah.
things. Introverts just at the end of the day need to chill, hang out, recharge.
And then I don't know the answer to this, but do people change or do they? Because I feel like as I'm getting older and I spend like all day at conferences and then there's always a dinner at the end and stuff, I like charged and couldn't sleep sort of thing. And then now I feel like I'm more like, oof, I'm gonna have to have a breather in the morning and like probably not pick up the phone and just speak to my daughter, wife, and then I don't know, just do something, go and put my headphones on and have a workout or something just to get some time back. So I don't know whether do people change?
They do. I will say, if you take the 16personalities.com is like the most common free test of the Myers-Briggs, but I love personality tests, not just for myself, but for my team, because I love diversity and not the cheesy, did I hit my numbers for minorities and women? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about diversity of
Yeah.
opinions and experience. And so I don't want other
Hmm.
INTJs. I don't want 5 INTJs reporting into me. I really want people who are different personalities. I have one who's an ENTJ. Love it because pushes me to think about things that I wouldn't think about or etc. But yes, over the years, when we take this test, you can change. It's also very much like the disc as well. I love Corn Fairy as well,
Yeah.
but all of these things can be so valuable for your core things that aren't going to change. But your introversion and extroversion does change, and you just need to take the test to see what your updated one is.
Okay. So I need to go back and do it. It's been a long time since I've done the disc or the 60 personality back into it. I'll let you know if it's changed and where I am. I think if I log in, it'll probably have my old results, or if not, I've got it somewhere else. But
Yep.
I'll have to check it out. So Symantec,
Yep.
where did you go from there and what
Oh,
prompted that?
oh, I went native. That's what we call it. My number one customer and client at Symantec was Zurich Financial and Insurance. And for years, they tried to recruit me. And I finally, after years, I was like, okay, this is an insurance company based out of Switzerland. I got to tell you, the amount of precision, vision, government, financial mentality is high. I loved it. I loved process. I love all that. So I went to Zurich, and it was a quick time of ability there. I went and finally got in there to work for some amazing people I'd always loved working with and alongside and for. I got in there, and within 6 months, the two people I'd come in to work for had moved on. And I remember them sitting me down and saying, I'm so sorry. I did not expect this. But I also want to say that before I left Symantec, the vice president who was in charge of Symantec like services there, he had worked for Steve Bennett and the GE crowd and things like that. And he sat me in a room when he knew I was leaving, and he went, "You know, you should never follow a person, Amanda." And I was like, "That's not how I feel. So like, whatever. I'm totally following a person, and it's okay." And
Yeah.
he knew, and I didn't, that that person was in talks to leave. That was the difference. So sometimes we hear advice and we just dispel it. We're like, nope, no, that's not me. That's not whatever. And we don't realize the person's trying to tell us something. They have more context or information that they can't tell you they know. So sometimes just listen with big ears when people give you advice. That was a big lesson. I went into Zurich and I was supposed to, for the first time ever, lead my own team, but I was a team of one for opening a digital forensic investigations unit. I did that, and within a month or two, I got a couple headcount all of a sudden, which was great. And oh, we had so much fun. It was awesome. And then within that next couple months, I took over like the whole incident response globally, the teams, and they were in Dublin and Hong Kong and Australia. And that's really where you first see the foray into management, is that, you know, a vacuum opens up. An opportunity, when business need and opportunity collide, is when you lean in. And I did, and I took the opportunity for the interim role. And that was how I got into management and people and leadership.
Looking back, was there anything that you prepared specifically for that, or anything that you think, oh, I did that and actually that really helped?
Um, I'm One time I was at work at Zurich, maybe a couple weeks or a month or something, because I lived in Buffalo at the time, so I was flying in like once a month. And I got it in writing how much travel to do. And
Good, wise
I went
move.
in and yes, smart move. I'd learned my lesson. And so I was in there, and the person who had brought me and recruited me and hired me, I was in his office for a one-on-one. And it was a little bit like walking, like he was so tall that it almost, and I always walked so fast that it almost looked like I was Emperor Palpatine and he was Darth Vader, like walking behind me. Because I'm a quick walker. And so one time I was sitting in his office and he said to me, "What are you doing?" And I like looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "You're all like navy blue suit like stuff." And I was like, Yeah." And he was like, "Why, where's Amanda?" And I was like, "Well, I work at Zurich. Like, this is what we do. We like look all financial and insurancy or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, we didn't bring you in here to do more of what everyone else is doing. We brought you in here to be yourself." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, all right. I like went and kind of just got more relaxed with my personality being more like present. But yeah, so I think that was what I brought to the role when I started to take into management and leadership roles. Was I was like, I'm going to bring fun and I'm going to playful like kind of thing. Like my team was called the Office of Digital Investigations, Odin, and like our
Right.
like logo was like an eye patch. Like it was our VPNs were like named after the two ravens. Like, come on, we had a lot of fun with it.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's surprising how many people don't bring their personality or are too buttoned up, especially in interviews. Like we're going through a bunch of leadership positions for a company at the moment, and it's interesting how many people, like, I get to speak to them, engage with them, and they're sort of a bit more relaxed. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get them out of their shell, and then they go into an interview and like they're just so sort of tense and overly professional. And the crazy thing is that it's your personality and that connections that you make that are most through that interview with a positive result. Um, so yeah, the personality thing, I think whenever you bring in that into business is such an important attribute.
What's your advice to somebody who you're dealing with that really doesn't have that to activate? They are just a binary personality. They don't understand that stakeholder like you were talking about. Like, what do you say to them? Fake it? Like,
Ooh, that's a great question for me. I think when we speak to somebody, I kind of encourage, I try and get to know them a little bit. So what are you into? What are you into outside of work? Because everybody's got their other interests, and they very rarely, especially when you get to a leadership position, are they just technology. They're just maybe they like to travel, or maybe there's a sport or something. So I try to get them talking a little bit about stuff that's outside of their work, and then I feel like that helps them settle down, and then that brings out their personality. And then if I know enough about them, then I can sometimes say, oh, do you know what, so and so's into soccer, or when you speak to this person, like, give them a bit of an understanding as to what they're looking for, and encourage them to like be themselves, and that's how you connect. But I mean, ultimately it's tough, right? What I can do in a little prep call is not enough compared to what they could do for themselves.
Yeah, it's a highly effective though. I think it's the first thing I do with like mentoring, which I don't love that word, but when somebody comes to me because they want to do like more speaking and they're not comfortable with speaking in large crowds or whatever, the first thing I always do is ask them to do a presentation, which I'll do as well, on their favorite thing that has nothing to do with work. Put together a deck or whatever, and then we're going to talk, and we're going to meet, and we're going to do it. And I always do a presentation on like Henry VIII. I love this topic. I know more about it than anything else in the world, right? And so what I love and what you want to see is that person to show who they are when they're relaxed and comfortable with the topic and the nature of things. Because the interview, it's hard to see that no matter what. Everyone's trying to date and be on their best behavior, and like, everyone, whatever. Let's just remove it. Let's talk about the favorite thing you love to talk about in the world. So that is really great advice from you to give them, and I think that's awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Route to CISO podcast. If there's something you really want me to ask on the next episode, or if you're a CISO who wants to inspire the next generation, please reach out. I'll leave a URL to my LinkedIn profile, and make sure you connect and message me there. We're always looking for feedback, so please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.